First of all, thank you all for coming. My name's Gregor Muir. I'm the director of the ICA. Absolute privilege and a pleasure to have Sue Tilley with us. Hello, Sue. And Sue Tilley. And it's great to be here with Sue, if only because I remember Sue called me a couple of weeks ago and you said, oh, my book's coming out on Kindle. Could we do something about it? I said yes, and then we spoke for 40 minutes about The Only Way is Essex. So, anyway.
Up.
Yeah, shut up. So there you go. Hopefully it'll be the other way around to this afternoon. It's usually about 35 minutes, this talk, and we rarely do Q&A, but I think it might be really good to do that today. Someone pointed out to me these are free talks, but there's a donation box outside. And I think for now, if we could just stop in the booth, what I would like to do is just screen a little clip, which I'm told will take about 5 seconds because it's from the super fast internet. But I just wanted to show that, please. But also just say welcome to you all. It's a really nice atmosphere today. I think most of Sue's family are.
They are, yes. And my work colleagues, I think, might like this video. I haven't heard, but I've heard what it is.
So if we could dim the lights, please. That would be nice. Just...
Sue Tilley couldn't believe it when she saw a picture of herself naked in an auction house window. But she wasn't upset, simply delighted. She was the model for a painting called Benefit Supervisor Sleeping by British artist Lucian Freud. The job centre employee, affectionately known to her friends as Big Sue, sat for the painting more than 10 years ago after being introduced to the artist by a friend.
Leigh Bowery was my best friend, and he was a, extravagant sort of performance artist of the 80s and club runner and everything. And he was working for Lucian. He knew he worked in the job centre, but he thought I should do something to expand my mind. So he slipped a seed into Lucian's head that he should paint me. And so he did. I was thrilled, really. But, obviously I've been thinking about it a lot because I've seen it a lot in the newspapers, But I was thrilled. I've forgotten quite how beautiful it was. I'm very proud.
The painting has attracted huge interest since it was put up for sale again and could make art history.
We have estimated it in between $25 to $35 million. It will be a new world record for the artist, and we should hope it will also be a record for any living artist at auction.
Freud's muse was paid just £20 a sitting and could only have imagined what the picture may be worth one day.
I did once daydream
More than I paid for
thought
today.
this painting was sold, this would happen, but not to kind of the limit that it has happened.
Freud once said he wanted his art to astonish, disturb, seduce and convince.
Yeah, it's lovely. You feel like you could put your hands and sink into the flesh. It's so realistic.
Sue won't receive a penny from the sale and has no plans to give up her day job. Hayley Platt, Reuters.
Thank you. Thanks very much. There's many things I loved about that clip. It's also evidence of you working in the job centre.
Got a day off today.
Well, I was going to say, do you have to fill out a form to do
Yes.
that? Yeah.
My boss is down there.
Oh, right. The painting sold for $33 million.
Yes.
In the end, it was actually a kind of a painting which will probably come to be famed. Aside from the beauty of the painting, it's an extraordinary Lucian Freud painting. It was sold by a man called Guy Nagar, part of Dorney and Day, which was a company that was collapsing because of the crisis, and it was bought by the Russian chap whose name's completely...
Roman
Abramovich, owner of Chelsea.
And funny enough, another one of my paintings is owned by the owner of Tottenham.
Right, okay, there we go.
Yes.
And it's become a painting which is associated with a huge shift in the world economies, the collapse of the banking industry, which Dorney and Day were involved in. I know, absolutely. So Sue started that, but
yeah.
But what's it like seeing that painting again? When you heard it had sold for $33 million, where were we? You weren't at the auction, were
No,
you?
I wasn't. They wouldn't let me go. I asked, but no.
Oh, terrible.
No, I was at work at the job centre, and they said, someone from the Evening Standard's here to see you. I thought it was about work. And I went down there and went, did you know that your painting's about to be sold for a world record? I went, what is it? It's a bit weird. No one told me. And then I went upstairs, quickly Googled it, there was nothing on there. I thought, well, that's a bit odd. And then the next morning I Googled it, and there was one thing from Reuters, then suddenly everything went mental. But I still really can't believe it. It still seems rather peculiar.
There was an issue that you mentioned when you were posing for Lucian Freud in this period, and that was one of the paintings that he made of you that, any East Ender actor worth their salt, you went off and got a tan and
Yes.
came back, and he freaked.
Went absolutely mad. Wasn't allowed to work for a year. Because he'd finished the painting, but then while I was away, discussed it with his friend, Frank Albach, who always sort of gives his opinion on the painting, and he realised my arm was wrong. So when I got back from holiday, he had to paint my arm again. And he felt physically sick looking at me with my golden tan. And I had to wait a year for it to fade, so I could go back to work.
And there's smaller details as well. He painted out your tattoos.
Yes, they made him feel a bit ill. So mixed up the paint to paint me, then painted it over my tattoo. So I didn't have to look at it.
And there was a series of poses. I think one that you mentioned was that you had tried to get away with just putting your head, sort of lying the other way around with your head in the corner so you could go to sleep.
I thought that'd be a fabulous idea, but no. He wasn't having it. He started, but then, you know.
Tell me about that period of time, because in a way, Lucian had sort of become very intrigued by Leigh, hadn't he? Through, I think it was an Anthony Doffe show. There was a moment where Lucian was being introduced to Leigh through Anthony Doffe, Kerith Wynne Evans, and Angus Cook, and the sort of art set. And I mean, the two of you, did you ever appear in a painting together? Or was it just separated?
We started off being a painting together,
Yeah.
the first one.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Leigh had to go to Scotland to work with Michael Clarke. And so Leigh's dog took the place of Leigh. So it was just me and Nicola and the dog.
Oh,
but very
yes.
strangely, that was the picture I had to move my arm in. And then just as it was finished, it went at the end of an exhibition at the Whitechapel Gallery.
Yeah.
And I went there and I was just with my friends looking at it. And there was this man giving a lecture about it. It just, you know, it's the first time it'd ever been seen, the first day it'd been hung. Going, this proves that Lucian's misogynist about women. She's lying on the floor, the dog's in bed, that poor ugly woman, poor thing down there. And I was sitting there and I started laughing. He goes, excuse me, what's the matter with you? I went, actually, that's me. You've never seen a man more embarrassed in your life. He just wanted to fall through the floor. He goes, oh, you're quite pretty in real life. And I proved his theory wrong. So I went, the dog's only there because it was meant to be Leigh and he went away. It wasn't, a proven thing that Lucian hated women.
What was it like? I know that some people may have read this a while back, but just to go back to it again, what was it like working with Lucian? How did he come across to you?
He's the most hilarious person I've ever met, to be honest. If he was on television, he'd be a national treasure because he was so entertaining.
Yeah.
I think this talk was meant to be about Leigh. It's
No,
about
we
me
do.
and Lucian.
We'll come on.
Oh,
to
right, okay.
A bit about you.
I would say that Lucy was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
The stories used to come out, I used to be laughing so much. Because, like people who just want to do what they want to do and they just do it. And they've got no qualms about the normal expectations of life, about how you should behave, what you should do. None of that. If you want to do something, you do it. And whatever he did was right. But it was very amusing. And I had no idea of the modern world. Yeah, so you could wash up. I think you use that green stuff over there, which is washing up liquid. And then, and I gave him a fridge magnet once. Well, he thought that was the most amazing invention he'd ever seen in his life. And then he said things like, oh, yeah, I have to get that meant. It's as much as I can do to turn on the light.
Oh, God. So it's worth probing you just to get the fridge mag.
Yeah. It was a picture of Leigh, actually, but he just thought it was the best invention he'd ever seen.
Let's talk about Leigh.
Okay.
And obviously, for those of you who don't know, it was would have been Leigh's 50th birthday in the week, which
Last Saturday,
which is where Sue called me and said, should we do something about it, which we're doing now, but we're also going to be doing this evening with an event called Sunshine, which should be extremely interesting for many reasons, starting from about 8 in the bar and moving on throughout the evening. But where did you meet? How did you meet Leigh?
I think I met him in the nightclub. Surprise. I spent a lot of the 80s in nightclubs. And I just thought, I think it was in Charles in Heaven. I quite like the look of him. He had a nice, cheery, open face. He didn't really dress that freaky then. He was just, like everyone else. And I just started talking to him and we just got on very well. And then we became friends in about a week.
Did you hang out with it? Did you go to his? Was he living in his council flat in Commercial Road? Wasn't it?
Oh no,
at
he
that
hadn't
time?
moved there then. He was
Right.
he was living in one in Islington, but I never went to that one. And the reason
Yeah.
we made proper friends is because he moved to the flat in Commercial Road. And in those days, it took about months to get a phone connected. You
Yes.
know, it was a great problem. And
Yeah.
someone wanted to take his photograph, so they phoned me, and so I got on the bus and went round his house.
Yeah.
Knocked on the door and said, "Someone wants to do your photo. Will you do it?" Not like nowadays, where you'd be, texting them or whatever.
When you say that he wasn't dressing that freaky, did you still get the sense of him being interested in clothes? Or
Yeah, but he just,
Yeah.
everyone in those days had shaved sides, spiky hair on the top, then trousers up to here,
Yeah,
and braces.
yeah.
And that's what he was
I
like.
loved it earlier because I was thinking, what am I going to ask Sue? And then Sue said, well, don't ask anything too highfalutin, but just to bear in mind that one of the best questions I ever got asked was right at the end of a talk when someone said, where'd you get that top?
Yeah. That was at the tea gallery as well.
Exactly, at the so that's completely thrown me. But this
Sorry.
is one of Leigh.
Yeah, this
Leigh's
is a Leigh
dresses.
dress and Leigh little thing
Yeah.
he made me.
Absolutely. And can you talk through, let's just talk a little bit about that time. Cha-Cha's was a club, it was at the back of heaven,
Yeah.
and London was very, very, very different then, I think it's
Yeah.
fair to say. And these clubs were, I thought, brilliant. I remember going to some of them a little later, Sacrosanct, Anarchy. They were just...
Don't know if I went to those.
They were really... Well, they were...
They were special for you,
They were just
Gregor.
for me.
Yeah.
But can you explain a little about who you were seeing out at that time? Trojan would have been one of those people at that point? Or?
Yeah, Trojan. Because
Yeah.
me and Trojan were like very good friends.
Yeah.
And the thing was, nowadays there's loads of different clubs and that, but there was only like one club a night, so you go and you see the same people. You know them all. Princess Julia, I don't know if she's here, she was coming, but she might be late.
Salon.
Philip Salon, Boy George, various people. My little friend Simon, smiling over there, who was well known as Gender Bender. And now look at
There
him.
you go.
Yeah.
So I think it was into this kind of culture that Leigh started to grow and develop, certainly as a fancy dresser.
Yeah.
And I certainly recall that moment when Leigh would walk in with a pot of paint poured over his head. At this time, he had that kind of early look with a crash helmet
hat.
and strange
Well, his
glasses.
first look was Package from Outer Space.
That's the one.
And he designed it on Trojan first of all because he was a bit nervous to wear it out. So he thought, dress Trojan up. So Trojan was the first model. And after about a week of going out wearing this, Leigh saw the attention Trojan was getting. So he had it as well. And there was there was Space Princess who's died now and David Walls. And there'd just be four of them go out in the outfit.
And so can you just describe a bit of what that looked, how
It was a
would-
hat like this that
Yeah.
was made out of very cheap anorak material that you used to get down Brick Lane with sequins sewn on it. And then like a smock thing with like usually a star on it. And then you couldn't really buy platform boots then. So what you used to do was buy old shoes, then just paint them with old gloss paint.
Shall we answer that? Well, but I think it was also quite clear that Leigh was quite brave in a sense. He would just go into Charing Cross Road. You'd see him fully dressed, purple head, looking absolutely the strangest person on the planet. And as if it weren't strange enough to see him in Soho, he was going back to the East End most nights. I always wondered how you said in your book that he had no problem with being gay. That was completely just the way it was, and he'd had a very unusual sexual upbringing in Melbourne, and that I think you wrote that the more freaky the person was he went with, that was kind of good in his book.
Yeah, but not for sexual gratification, just the entertainment value that he could tell people afterwards about the bizarre person he'd met.
Could you give an example? You can't.
Well, I can't really remember, but, meeting people with funny hair like straw, and he could tell you the story. I can't remember, but Trojan had some funny experiences, but, I don't think I can really share them with people. Not with my mother sitting down there.
Oh, yes, sorry. And I think at that point then there was obviously the famous club Taboo, which became really heavily associated with Leigh. And if I'm right, he asked you to be on the door at that point.
Well, the first night opened, funny enough, I was in hospital having an ovarian cyst removed.
There we go.
So he came to visit me
Mum.
the next day and was so excited and laid in the bed with me and told me all about it, and it was thrilling. But I don't think only about 10 people turned up the first night. But then it just got busier and busier and busier, and it just became, London's top hotspot.
Well, I think I went twice. I got rejected once.
No.
Didn't know each other. I know. But it was the place to be, and I think was George Michael was rejected, or something? Weren't there quite?
Oh no, George Michael
He
was
got
very
in,
keen
but
down there.
I think Brian Ferry got turned away or something. There was a kind of always this thing about how elitist
Do you know
and strange.
what? There were an awful lot of lies. Because I used to type up the guest list at work, and we used to put make-up people on there for the Bouncers Entertainment. We used to put Joan Collins, Des O'Connor, just like random names, just the entertainment of everyone.
This is for those of you who never went on. It was a tiny club really in Leicester Square, and it was quite outrageous in a sense what was going on. But always, I think it's Geoffrey Hinton was the DJ playing brilliant music.
Julia just do the cloakroom. Rachel Alban was DJing, and people who went there now were like John Galliano used to go there.
Well, I remember
and
Peter Doig used to go there. And the Artwell, Carith Wynne Evans used to go there. It was a quite incredible crowd.
Most people there either died or became very, very successful.
Yes.
John Maybury.
Sounds like a rap album title, doesn't it? I mean, there was also. I mean, there were clearly movements in art at that time, like New Romantic. I was going to come on to John, and in a way, there was this sort of underground culture with Michael Clarke. And with Charlie Atlas and people, and at the time though, it felt like it was outside of the kind of art world per se. I mean, you had to go to Cork Street for that.
Nobody really talked about being an artist or anything. They were just doing their own thing, and everyone was so poor. Yeah. And everything was sort of made hodgepodge. Before you went out, you just sort of knocked something up, and I mean, I went out to clothes I made of a tablecloth because that's all I could afford, really.
I do remember a story where I was at an Anthony Doffey opening with Jane and Louise Wilson, and I said, "Oh look, there's Sue over there," and they both kind of went, "Oh God." And I said, "What's the matter with you both?" And they said, "We both sign on with Sue." And
I remember. No, they were very complicated because they were very honest, and they used to declare their work. And we used to hate it when we did that because it was so many forms to fill in. But I still remember their initials: L.A. and J.A. Wilson.
Yeah.
And Sam Taylor Wood used to sign on with me as well.
They all did.
I think I might be
Days.
breaking the Official Secrets Act.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it was something ridiculous, like £60 for 2 weeks or something. I remember being on it, and everyone was kind of rather broke and imaginative, though, at the same time.
I was bizarre because I worked there. I wasn't on it. People used to knock on the door and they were a bit late, so we shut at 3:30 and they go, "Oh, give us a squeeze, go on," because they knew me from the clubs, working on the door, and it was like a nightclub expression. Give us a squeeze. So I'd let them in.
And what do you think, in a funny way, the club scene, which was very exciting, you had Taboo and then Kinky Galinky and really... But it was also, I mean, Leigh was making such efforts with his clothing, and every night, every other week, it seemed to get more elaborate and, in a way, more time-consuming. He was putting a great deal of effort into it. But how did that work? Because in a way, when I think of, I'll jump to Minty in a bit, but was that going? Did he see it as an art form? Did he see it as performance?
Oh, he used to say, modern art, but he would just like to look different. And if you look at the outfits, generally you can see that one moves on to the next. Yeah. Like one bit might change, but he's just spent hours doing it, and stay up all night and things like that. Oh, it's not my cup of tea. I'm too lazy. But I used to think, and sometimes he'd like unpick things, and then sew them again. It wasn't quite right, and unpick it and sew it again because he was such a perfectionist and wanted to make sure he looked the most stunning person in the club. And then he'd just roll on the floor, rip everything, get covered in makeup, spill drink down it. Yeah.
Was he making money out of this? Was he in the fashion in that moment?
Oh no, no money from fashion whatsoever. Sometimes he used to make a few things for, pop stars and that, but he never was so embarrassed about asking about money. He was, he was just so embarrassed and just used to charge a little bit because he was so embarrassed to ask. And then at the club, if he'd sort of had a good night and made a lot of money, he just used to share it out amongst everyone who worked there.
And also, I mean, with that moment, there was, I think you put it well in your book about the fact that most people were going to clubs then around midnight. Yeah. And so that's when you would turn up, and if you arrived at 1, by then the club would shut within an hour, the lights would go on. And so you would find yourselves running around Soho. You mentioned the Pink Panther Club in your book.
Yes. Oh, look, people remember the Pink
big,
Panther.
Huge.
Pink Panther was fantastic. It was open all night. I think it cost £1 to get in. I think
Yeah.
a can of beer was 50p, and the entertainment that went on there, the misbehaviour was phenomenal. It was
With
so
your mother
entertaining.
here, can we elaborate on that or no?
Well, there's the terrible. Well, you know, it was just like terrible mucking about and falling over. And should I mention the terrible time with the Kajagoogoo picture? Because Leigh wasn't over keen on Limar.
Yeah.
So he ripped the picture off the wall, put it on the floor, and decided to defecate on it as an art performance. And then there was the terrible time when I think we were sitting in the street outside. This is one of the most exciting nights of my life, 'cause it was like a film. It was just so fantastic. We were sitting outside and we were waiting to go home. It was probably about 4 o'clock. Then we were with Michael Clark and Les Child. And then suddenly they decided to do a ballet down the street. And you know, you just sit there going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm seeing this. Because they were just like dancing on top of cars. And it was just so brilliant. But then unfortunately, Michael got a bit carried away. Went to the first tube, decided to slide down the banisters and did his back in and couldn't dance for quite a mile.
Oh, God. I mean, if we can talk a bit about Minty, I thought they were the most extraordinary band. I'm sure many people did see Minty perform live. I think there was a moment when we were talking earlier about how one of the best performances was at a Fate Worse Than Death, which was in the East End, which was a sort of artist festival, for want of better words, and it was in the middle of the day, and I remember at one point there was this large object which was a big piece of fur or something.
Blue fun fur.
Blue fun
with a
fur.
smiley face on it.
Smiley face, and it had 2 holes for eyes. Do you want to fill in the rest, Sue?
And out of the eyes popped my bosoms.
So,
But you couldn't see me.
no, it was
I remember
quite,
someone grabbing them.
and it was quite incredible what happened next from the point of view of the performance that took place and the famous birthing scene. Could you talk a little about
Well, when I first saw it, I was just thrilled. I couldn't believe my eyes.
that? Yeah.
Because Leigh didn't tell me what he was going to do. He said, I'm doing this fantastic show, you've got to come. And then he sort of waddled on stage looking so enormous. And there was a big chap, he just looked enormous. And then just laid down on the floor, kicked his legs. Well, did a whole show, you know, a whole song, a couple of songs maybe. Laid down, kicked his legs in the air. Then, huffing and puffing, then out popped a baby, which was Nicola. And how he managed to do that, I don't know.
was
And how she managed
extraordinary.
as well, hanging upside down for that whole time.
I think that was part of the whole illusion of it, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Because
it
he
was just
performed
fantastic.
and you got used to him being very large and heavy set. But and then amazingly,
He loved a trick.
she'd been suspended upside
Yeah.
down on belts.
And when she came out, her face
Yeah.
was so red from being upside down at that time.
Yeah.
But he loved a trick of any kind, like pretending he was weeing and things like that. And he'd
Yeah.
sort of have apple. It usually involves something from Sainsbury's, you know, some apple juice in some bags that look like wee. Vegetable soup was sick, you know. He used to sort of rig up all these bizarre arrangements because he had pierced face as well. Because he used to safety pin things on, so it was just for handiness, really, that he could... And then he was sort of putting the wires through and trying to put light bulbs in his face.
I mean, were there times when you thought Leigh had gone too far?
Not really. You know, as long as I didn't have to do it, as long as I didn't have to join in. To be honest, I didn't really like going out with him when he was too freakily dressed because he couldn't have a chat. So that was my favourite. I like going out with him in the daytime the best because you'd have a good chat.
I mean, there's a nice story where you go on a holiday, somewhere to Scotland or something. Oh no, to the Hepworth.
Yeah. Cornwall.
Yeah.
We loved our little holidays, yeah.
And I think he made an approach to a nun at some point. And,
I know that was him in Birmingham when he did Pebble Mill. That was a big excitement. The thing is, he'd drunk half a bottle of vodka before he went on.
Oh my God.
Because he was a bit nervous, really, deep down.
There was another side to Leigh in as much as that I remember going to his flat and there was an enormous grand piano in the front room. And first of all, I could never work out how he got that in onto something like 12th floor or something of this council block. But he was a very well tutored pianist, was he not?
Everything he did, there was this huge intellect. I can't even say the word. Intellect behind everything he did. It wasn't just for a joke.
Yeah.
And everything he wanted to do, he could just do marvellously. Like he would play the piano to grade 8. He'd had quite a strict upbringing as a child, which he used to be grateful for, really. He goes, oh, I'm glad I was brought up properly, because then when I'm being bad, I know I'm being really bad, you know.
And I think, in a way, that came to bear with the Anthony Doffo show, which I thought was unbelievably amazing. I saw Anthony recently was congratulating him on that exhibition as being one of his best, I think, in Dering Street. But I think if I'm right, Kerith filmed every day, and that
Yeah.
people would go, and there was this, from my own memory anyway, it was a large plate window, one-way mirror,
Yeah.
so that we all knew that Leigh would be essentially looking at his own reflection, and as we were looking on, he'd be just occasionally moving on a chaise longue, dressed as a leopard or something.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was amazing, I thought.
Yeah, but he took it all very, seriously, because that really was his first introduction to sort of art as such.
Yes.
And it was at the time when, young British artists were coming out, and it was like he was being accepted as an artist rather than someone working in a club. So he did take it all very seriously. And
Yeah.
do you know Lucan, who worked at the Anthony
Yes.
Duffy Gallery? He gave him a picture that that Leigh wouldn't put inside his flat. He put it outside his flat because he thought it was bugged. And the Anthony Duffy was spying on him for some unknown reason.
That represented a sort of, it did sort of signal
Yeah,
that
it was like
change.
and the
didn't
Fate
it?
Worse Than Death was like the first time he got involved with the
Yeah.
artists and that, and he really felt he was like properly accepted as art rather than club.
I without saying, too much about it, it was a great shame of sorts, because he was, with Minty especially, really breaking into the art world, I felt.
Yeah.
I mean, it was clear that he was going to get lots of invitations to become, to attend all the art dinners and the art world events and everything else. And he was right at that moment.
I know.
It was something of a missed opportunity. I think we lost there one of the great performance
I know, it would
artists.
have been marvellous. Because the year after at the Fate Worse Than Death, huge excitement when he had to work with Angus Fairhurst and
Yeah.
Damien Hirst,
Yeah.
and had to paint their testicles.
Yes.
Like spotty and stripy, I think. Well, he kept
Yeah.
phoning me up, going, "You can't believe what I'm doing now." And he was,
Yeah.
and he really thought he was in there and part of the art world.
I think so. Weirdly, I filmed that.
Oh, did you? I'd like to see that film.
And it was incredible, because you had sort of, I remember that this was for the Fate Worse Than Death, where Angus and Damien had set up a stall along with other artists, and it was spin paintings. It was
What,
black
they're
and,
selling for £1 or something?
yeah, it was a Black and Decker
Imagine.
drill and a piece of wood, and they were dressed as clowns, which meant you paid £1 for the spin painting, but an extra 50p to see Leigh's other artwork down below, and there was a great moment when I think someone had won some raffle where they got to spend a day with Angus and
I
Damien.
remember, yeah.
And,
he had to do-
and that was a whole day with Leigh and Damien and Angus all in one room, which was quite incredible, because Damien was on the phone the whole time trying to get the press in to
Watch this
to
date.
cover this.
Yeah.
But he was very much, they adored him.
I
And
know.
they just spent the whole day telling the crudest jokes between the three of them I could possibly imagine.
You see, one of the jokes I've never really got. So I won't tell you it, 'cause I've been told to get in it, and I can never really get it. I don't find it that funny, but I thought perhaps that's me being a bit thick.
Did Leigh ever himself feel like did he have bad low moments? Call you in confidence? What am I doing, Sue? Or was he always completely positively sure of
Oh
himself?
no, sometimes he was getting this terrible state. The terrible time when he did a fashion show in New York,
Yeah.
and Michael Clark threw a stone at the window at the Limelight, laid around the house sobbing, because he couldn't believe that, somebody had done some terrible act like this. But you'd think he'd be thrilled, but it was a step too far for him. But then sometimes, he did. Every person in the world has self-doubt. I don't think if you don't have self-doubt, there's something wrong with you, isn't there? Don't you go home and think, "Oh, God, I'm such an idiot." I do most days. And I think people who don't do that, they can't sort of move on and don't realise, not real about themselves.
Can you just? Nicola's not here, sadly, but it would have been nice to see her. But Nicola had started to. I remember Nicola looked like Leigh a bit in the clubs, and you'd see her with the glasses and the crash helmet, but they weren't immediately together in that sense.
Oh no, she was just a girl from the country who came to Taboo and dressed up in this swimming costume and all these swimming hats and glasses, and sort of threw herself at Leigh, and he was taken to her because she'd do anything for him. She was much better than me. So I think, I can't cut anymore. I'm going home. And she'd devote herself to him, you see.
And they ended up being married.
Yeah.
And how was that day? Were you?
I wasn't invited. I didn't know. See, because I'm known for being a bit of a big mouth, gossip, chat a lot. And we've been, strangely enough, to Linda Costi's funeral. And Nicola and Chris, I said to Chris, come to my house. And it all came out that Nicola was married to Leigh, because I didn't know. Funny enough, a week before he'd asked me to marry him, very bizarrely. He was obsessed. And I said no. And anyway, so I didn't tell him that I knew.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it made me laugh. 'Cause I think, I know something you don't know, I know. And then the day I had to take him to the hospital when he was ill, he went, look, there's something I've got to tell you. I've got to tell you this. I can't believe I haven't told you. I went, oh, it's all right, I know all along. And he just couldn't believe that I'd managed to keep it to myself. So I proved to him I could. But the thing is, I kept the secret that he was ill anyway, so I can keep a secret if I'm told to.
How did Leigh deal with his illness?
Well, it was a bit horrible how he found out, because he said, look, I've got to, I'm coming round tonight, I've got to come round. I went, I'm going out. And he goes, no, I've got to come round. I've got to. I thought, oh my God, what's going on? So I was sitting home and he came round and he showed me his letter. And he'd been to be tested for HIV 2 years previously, and they'd never gone back for the results because he didn't want to know. And then the hospital had sent him a letter saying, just want to know how you're dealing with your HIV status. So he just found by opening this letter and he had to come round and tell me. He was going, oh my God, what am I going to do in my life? I'm never going to be able to have sex again. Oh, my life's over. And all, it was horrible, really horrible. 3 days later, he was down the toilets. But it changed changed everything, because he used to have it like a couple of days a week, he'd lie around doing nothing, relaxing and that. And after that, he just worked and worked and worked. He said, I haven't got much time left. I've got to make my mark. I've got to prove what I can do. I've got to do what I can do.
I mean,
but you mustn't tell anyone. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I don't want anyone to treat me differently. I don't,
In terms of that working hard, in terms of leaving his trace, as it were, on the world, I mean, Leigh was always someone who could work with photographers in the most amazing ways, I felt. I mean, in many ways, I think the performances are probably impossible to reenact and will only exist in sort of video recording and so on, but the photographs are extraordinary. I mean, were there any moments when you were involved in those, or you were always coming back from the shoots, kind of saying...
I used to tell you, but I couldn't get involved.
Yeah.
I didn't really know any of the Fergus Greer photos. He used to tell me about them, but I didn't really pay full attention, so I didn't know how fantastic they were when I actually saw them. But sometimes I used to do little things with him. I remember we did a video for a student video where he played Elvis, and I played Elvis's mother.
Yeah.
And Roland Giff, for some unknown reason, played Elvis's dead twin brother. And then because he said that it wasn't really being done very properly, he was getting really in a fuss and going, they're not doing it properly, and he was getting all worked up because he likes to do things perfectly. But we did laugh.
I was just wondering what in a sense, Leigh's legacy is. I was trying to work this out today. How is he going to be remembered outside of his generation? I suspect it will be interesting.
In my mind, it's a way of living your life, not being frightened of doing things, and it's an opportunity taking it. Yeah. I've sort of followed that, and it leads me down some funny paths. But still, I think it's just do what you want to do. Be brave, do it, and try and do it properly, and believe in yourself and believe in what you want to do.
Yeah, I thought Leigh had really sort of honed his skills as he got on. In terms of, I remember there was the launch of which I didn't attend, neither of us did, but the Metropolitan Museum, when they had the Lucian Freud show there, and of course you've got these fantastic paintings on the wall. But then he came in a Pickelhaube helmet and covered head to toe in paisley in a huge, enormous dress, which I think would have perhaps eclipsed the paintings.
I think it completely eclipsed everything, to be quite frank. Yeah. I think, his personality was so huge, he just did fill a room and take everything over.
What did Leigh make of Lucian?
Oh, he absolutely adored him. It completely changed Leigh's life. I mean, if you look at early footage, you can hear he's got Australian accent. He turned very la-di-da after he started working for Lucian. And his voice completely changes. And he, before... To be honest, I have to say, I hadn't really heard of Lucian Freud before Leigh started working for him. And probably a lot of people hadn't, I think they helped each other. It was a very two-way relationship. And he used to tell them the stories he used to tell me about them, and he used to love meeting posh people. He goes, I was out with Lady this and Lord that. And I was like, oh, really? Yeah. A lot of it was fibs. Yeah. I found out later. But, he learnt so much. Yeah. And I think they were very alike, that, they do what they want to do. try and push the boundaries.
You mentioned something in your book about how, for instance, up until then he'd worked with certain models, let's say Angus Cook and Kerith Wynne Evans, and Leigh came to it from the point of view that I think on the first day that he turned up, he just took his clothes off, but Lucian wasn't necessarily expecting him
No, he wasn't.
to.
No, I think because he'd seen all these clothes and thought that he'd want to be painted with his clothes on. But to be honest, Leigh, his favourite way to be was naked. If he went round his flat, he just had his pants on, nothing else. You know, because it was such a relief from being constrained by all these clothes, I think. So it was a joy for him. And also, if you look at his looks, they really changed a lot after he started working for Lucian. Because he actually used his body much more to deform it and change it and that, because you have so much time to look at your body while you're working for Lucian. And you become really aware of it, 'cause you're seeing it, but you're also seeing it being painted. And so and also you have a lot of time to think. That generally in life you don't have those like 6 hours where you're just lying there and you are free to think about things. So I think a lot of the ideas for his new looks came to him.
I'm sorry about this legacy too, but it's interesting that the most memorable images of Leigh will be him naked, without the clothing. And he was he was built in an extraordinary way, I must say.
He was like a rugby player. Unfortunately, he had no interest in sport.
But I remember he was interested in adapting his body, apart from the holes that he had in his cheeks.
Corsetry, and then, you know, when he made one leg big and one thin, and really actually, quite often he used to go out more or less naked, but with sort of corsetry just to change the shape of his body.
I think I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, or at least I remember that day when he was with Damien and Angus saying, for instance, I've been invited to do a film, albeit in a bit part, but I've asked them to give me massive boobs involving quite intensive surgery, which I'd like taken out at the end of the film.
Wouldn't surprise
so they couldn't
me.
afford him. But
it
seemed he would have gone maybe into that territory more and more, I suspect.
I think so.
I mean, his silhouette became...
and he had this thing where he hated his teeth, and he had this little list of things he wanted to improve, was get new teeth, but he used to paint them with this like white paint. They just look ridiculous. Even in the daytime, there were these funny little white painted teeth. But that's as far as he got, really, with proper body. But Trojan actually cut his ear.
Yes, after Van Gogh.
And actually, Leigh was completely, utterly freaked out and horrified. He just couldn't, really believe that he'd done that, because it seemed to step too far. And he kept saying he was going to cut off his hand. But Leigh managed to stop Trojan doing that.
Oof. I mean, Leigh was very, clearly traumatised by Trojan's death, wasn't he? I mean, he would remember there's a story about 5 years later, he remembered the exact day, the exact hour every year. They were incredibly close. Have you seen Trojan's paintings? Do you think how did Leigh and Trojan relate?
Well, I think they're half Leighs and half Trojans. I think Leigh told him what to do. But, it was Trojan's concept of it, but there was a lot of bossiness coming in. I mean, to be honest, Leigh used to paint a little bit on Lucian's paintings when he was out of the room. So he thought that he was involved. He just could not let anyone... He had to have his nose in there. Do you know what I mean?
You said that with Trojan, Leigh would actually jump in on his interview. So when Trojan was doing a show in Japan or something like that, he'd answer all the...
Probably. I'm surprised he's not here. Telling me what to do. Probably is.
There was a very supportive culture at that time, and I think you could... Do you remember Sight, that shop that used to be in Berwick Street? It was amazing because it sold a lot of clothing by Rachel Orburn and Chris Moore, and it seemed possible to survive in that way for a time. Do you think artists or people like that now, if they're looking at that as a way to be an artist, it can't be possible anymore?
I think so. The world's moved on, and you need more money, and people just live so hand to mouth then. And I mean, the excitement when he got 3 dole checks through his door by mistake. I should have reported him, shouldn't I? But, they were delivered to the wrong house. And he went out and bought all these, those ultraviolet bulbs for his flat. And it was like, huge joy that he could actually afford them.
And just to touch on it, Leigh's passing, it was on New Year's Eve, wasn't it? It was a crazy time. I remember various friends of mine just being totally shocked, traumatised by it all. Where were you at this point? Were you?
Well, because I took him to the hospital the first time. I was at home, he rang up and said, I've got meningitis, you've got to take me to the hospital. And it was like, Yeah, I was trying to put off going because I didn't want to take him there because I felt if I took... You know, but we both thought he'd get better.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And so I'd actually left the hospital about a couple of hours before he... No, about an hour before he died to go home for a minute to get to sleep. And then about 3 in the morning, Nicola rang up and told me he died. But it was because his family were over as well, bizarrely at the time. And so I drove back to the hospital and then drove them back to Leigh's house and did a little tour around Russell Square in tribute.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's wonderful to see people now. I think there might be people this evening who might want to mimic Leigh in the way that he looks. I mean, is that possible?
You see people mimic it, but it's never quite right. I mean, I went to Australia to open a big exhibition about Leigh, and there was this guy there who's obsessed with him, Joshua Rhodes.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't right. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't, you know, they hadn't done it that 100% as well as they should have done.
Yeah.
Which, because Leigh's looks were 100% perfect.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, beginning they weren't, but, you know, as time went on, they were. I think people can. I do see people out and about now, but they seem to miss... Because Leigh was a fantastic mix of a look, but he also had the personality, the brain and the wit to go with it. And so it was like really marvellous the way they sort of worked together. You know, that whole thing. It wasn't just a look. Yeah. It was a brain and an idea and a personality and everything all there together.
I just want to talk a little, obviously, about you. I saw pictures of you as...
No, sorry not.
I saw you as a geisha girl in some images recently.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What have you been up to?
Oh, I have some funny things I do. That was because this French magazine wanted to do an article on Leigh, so they got in touch with me. And, you know, I'm really obliging. And if someone asks me to do something, I'll do it. I'm on time. I'm easy go. You know what I mean? I don't make a fuss and just do what they want to do. And they kind of got a bit obsessed with me. And they said, we've got this artist. And then they came over to see me, but they couldn't really speak very good English. And they said they wanted to dress me in tissue. I was going, what? And that's French material. And I didn't really know what I was doing at all. And I ended up being taken to Paris and taken to the studio. And there was all cameras and costume and makeup and that. 3 days I had to dress up in these geisha outfits. But to this day, I've really never got to the bottom of what it was all about. And what I hated was, because they were all gossiping, and I can speak a bit of French, but not that well, and I couldn't really get the ins and outs of all the people and what was going on.
Have you ever been asked to be a life model in the painting sense again for anyone, or...?
Have I? Well, I've done photographs for Sam Taylor Wood.
Oh, yeah. Actually, you were on the front cover of Freeze magazine.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry, yeah. And I was in the... and I was in the Turner Prize.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, so... yeah, but, I've worked for the best. I can't really go downhill, can I?
No.
But can I just tell you about my latest exploits that I seem to have got myself involved in? It's mortifying. If you look at my Facebook page, you can see it. My bra is in the Little Dean jail of crime in the Forest of Dean. And somehow they vacuously, to get a crime image, seem to have linked me to the craze. I don't know how, but it's I hope there's no one there from here today, but it's the most hilarious, cheapest museum you've ever seen in your life. And I've sometimes been twisted into getting involved in it.
That's great. I think
I'm just saying yes. I should say no.
See, that's absolutely brilliant. I think we can sort of wrap my bit up for a bit, but if anyone would like to ask you a question, it would be great, and I would just ask if you could just speak up so we can all hear, because we won't have we do have a microphone. So yes, please, come down here, yeah? Hello?
Can I just say, I was absolutely delighted to see Geoffrey Hinton
Yes,
alive.
just coming in.
Really late. Perfect,
Last
Geoffrey!
minute.
Hooray!
We did mention you earlier, Geoffrey. Brilliant DJ at Taboo.
Never lets
and other
us
things.
down.
No. Sorry.
Did Grayson Perry meet Leigh?
Yes, he did, yeah. Because they were in a performance of Michael Clarke together, Hail the New Puritans, where the neo-naturists performed, and Leigh was in it.
And they got on well?
Pardon?
They got on well?
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah.
I mean, I think Grayson came through those channels. It was interesting because Grayson was talking here very recently, and I think Grayson got his break because he had a pot on Kerith Wyn Evans' table, and Kereth and Leigh were incredibly close.
Yeah.
In fact, I had my first encounter with Leigh in plain clothing with Kereth, who had an exhibition on and had really wanted Leigh's opinion about his art at that time, very much so. And Kereth had been given a pot, I think, by Grayson very, very early on, which then I think a lady called Clarissa Dar-Wimple saw and put in a group show that she did at Anthony Doffey, and I think that helped start Grayson on the path. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. Another question, sorry.
Hiya. I just wanted to ask, in your book, it's well documented about Leigh's sex life. Did he have any real partner relationships, or do you think there was someone he was like sort of really obsessed about and would have liked to have been partners with?
Well, Trojan.
I thought,
Yeah, he
I
was
heard
like
about that.
madly in love with him. And it was weird because Leigh sort of was on top of Trojan in every way, like intellectually, stylishly, but Trojan held the trump card because Leigh loved
The
him.
ace card.
Yeah, but they did have a romance, but it lasted about 4 weeks till Trojan ran away. Yeah, well, not bad. Yeah, did go his
Thank
best. There were 4 very happy weeks.
It's a long term. Anyone else just at the back there?
Oh, hi.
Hello, Robert.
Hi, Robert.
One of the great things about Leigh and you, and by the way, you've done brilliant. No, I think no one wants to leave the room. You're just mesmerising.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is for all the look, he was so amiable, so approachable. But my question is, do you still the relationship with his family now? Do you keep in touch at all with his family? And how were they during the fame and now post? What's their kind of take on it?
Well, his dad did come to stay with me after Leigh died, but it was all ever so sad because Leigh's mum died 6 months before he died. But in a way, Leigh was glad because then she wouldn't have to suffer the fact that he was going to die. And then his dad remarried, because I think Leigh had a very high sex drive, and his dad was a proper married man, really sort of celebration on, but he had 4 wives. So I think there must have been something he called, So anyway, he was married before Leigh's mum, then Leigh's mum died, then he married Leigh's mum's friend, she died, and now he's married another woman. But the daughter, Leigh's sister, Bronwyn, says that his dad really can't cope with it all, and he's kind of half forgotten, not forgotten, but tried to forget that Leigh ever existed, really, because I don't think he can really cope with it, the fact that Leigh died, and he's like moved on to this new life. And his sister, of course, she still thinks of Leigh, but she's doing very well. She's very sort of driven and runs a company in China now. But I've got very friendly with Leigh's second cousin on Facebook. She didn't meet Leigh, but she's obsessed with him, and it was really lovely. Because it was Leigh's birthday on Saturday, and she had a little party at his grave, and she's put the picture on Facebook, and there's like a little party hat and a little bottle of drink, and her and her 3 friends. I brought a little tear to my eyes when I saw it, and I thought, oh, bless. And she wishes she was here, bless her. She'd be thrilled she got mentioned.
Wonderful. I think no more questions for now. No? Good. Well, just to say how nice it is to see so many familiar faces.
I know, it's absolutely lovely. I keep looking around saying, oh, my goodness, lovely.
I think we just got to sign off by saying, Sue, really, really big thanks. That was
a pleasure.
brilliant. And Sue will be here afterwards if you've got any more intimate questions, I dare say. So there's a thought. But just for now, thank you very much, Sue Tilley. Brilliant. Brilliant, Sue.
Well, thank you very much. Marvellous question.
That's fantastic.